Hi, I'm Willie Horn, one of the founders of Glass Torch Technologies. In 1992, my brother Wally and I set out to design an entirely new type of hybrid surface mix burner that would revolutionize the lamp working industry by producing a wider range of flame characteristics than standard surface mix burners are able to produce. Here's what we came up with. The Lynx. It's the first of our triple mix burner designs. Our unique triple mix patented design has one gas control valve and two separate oxygen control valves instead of the usual single oxygen control valve found on standard surface mix burners. The addition of the second oxygen control valve to our triple mix torches allows for flame characteristics ranging from microneedle sharp to hard driving focus flames to soft brushy flames. And those aren't the only benefits you gain by using the Glass Torch Technology triple mix burner. The second oxygen control completely eliminates carbon buildup on the torch face. It's also super quiet, and the candle glare is greatly reduced. But that's not the best part. The best part, and most importantly, the flame is super hot. There are several different Glass Torch Technology burners suited for various lamp working situations. After I show you the various torch models, their uses, operation, and adjustments, we will have some demonstrations showing you techniques you can employ with our triple mix torches.
This is the Bobcat. It's the only standard torch we make. It's used for beadworking and small pyrex, a good beginner's torch. This is the Lynx. It's the first in our line of triple mix torches. The Lynx is the center fire for our bigger torches, producing extremely small needle flames, hard driving focused flames, and soft bushy flames. The Lynx is the most versatile of our torches. This is the Phantom, the next size torch in our line, incorporating the Lynx center fire system. It's capable of producing 1¼ inch shoulder flames. It's good for large solids and tubing. You can even work up to 2-inch heavy-walled quartz tubing, a real workhorse. The Phoenix is a phantom torch without the Lynx center fire system. If you don't need a needle-sharp flame, but you need the big main flame of the Phantom, the Phoenix is the most economical choice. This is the Delta, currently the biggest torch we make. With a 2¼ inch flame shoulder, big vases and goblets are no problem. It also has the Lynx center fire system. It will work the biggest pieces you can work by hand. This one has all the heat you need. The Mirage is similar to the Delta with a narrower 1¾ inch flame shoulder width. It has basically the same amount of heat as the Delta, along with the Lynx center fire system. This is a Delta torch with the optional 4-stud manifold. This option allows for the operation of a foot pedal. The 4-stud manifold is also available on the Phantom and the Mirage torches.
Triple mix torches take some getting used to. There's a definite learning curve involved. It'll take you a little time getting used to adjusting the torch, but the gain is well worth it. It's quieter, hotter, faster, no carbon buildup, and the range of flame characteristics is unbelievable. Now I'm going to show you how to light and adjust the Delta torch. The Phantom, Mirage, and Delta all have 6-valve control configuration. The 3 valves in the front control the center fire. The 3 back valves control the outer fire. The red valve in the front here on the center fire is the main gas. The green valve is the main oxygen for the center fire, and the blue valve is for the little injectors in the center fire. On the back valves, the red valve is your main gas for your outer fire, the green valve is your main oxygen for the outer fire, and the blue valve is your main inner injectors for the outer fire. Now we're going to light the torch. To start, I'm going to start with the center fire using the front red valve and the front blue valve. I'm going to first adjust the red valve to get about a 6-inch flame, yellow flame going, and then I'm going to use the blue valve to get the micro small needle sharp flames. Turn the blue valve on, and I'm going to bring it on till it starts getting to the point where it's making a hissing noise or distorting or crackling. At that point, you back down till it quiets up and smooths out. Then I'm going to start just by using the front red valve, going up and down to get different lengths that I need of the sharp flames. To get the smallest, you want to just back a little more off the blue valve and come down with the gas valve to get the real sharp needle flame. Then, if you want to get a brushy flame, we're going to use the green valve on the front and the blue valve on the front and the gas valve. So I'm going to start turning the green valve in the front on. It's going to pull the flame down. At this point, I want to start adding more fuel on. Get the candle lengths to about a 1/2 inch long. You just start to the point where it's starting to get noisy or distorting. Now to get the soft flame, I'm going to use very little of the blue valve. Start backing the blue valve to almost next to nothing on it to get the soft, fluffy type flame. Now if you want a harder driving flame, you're going to want to use more of the blue valve. So I'm going to be starting to bring more blue valve on. It's going to start sharpening the flame. At this point, I can start adding more fuel on. Get longer candle lengths in there, about 1 inch long. And that's to get the sharp center flame focused. Now, to start your outer fire, we're going to use the outer fire. First, keep the center fire on. Then, we're going to move back to the back valves. First, we're going to start with the red valve on the back and turn it on till we get about a foot long flame. 6 to 1 foot long. Okay. Now I'm going to bring on a green valve and bring it on to the point where it starts rippling on the outside shoulder. I'm starting to turn the gas valve up a little longer to get the candle lengths out about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch long, and start using the green valve to keep cleaning the candles up, and start turning on the gas valve a little more. Now, if you want brushy flames on the outer fire, we're going to use very little of the blue valve on the back outer fire. So I'm going to turn it on very little and start rolling on the gas. And I'm going to start playing between the back red valve and the back green valve. At some point it will be to the point where it's maxed out on the flame setting and you can't get no more the yellow candle out of it, and that's pretty much the maximum you're getting out of it. Now to get a harder focus flame, you're going to back down on the red valve and start turning on the blue valve. Now this is going to tighten up the flame, get it more focused, more sharper shoulder on the outer fire. At this point you can start adding more fuel on. And you can get candle lengths to about 1 inch long, 1.5 inches. That's good flames. And that's pretty much how you get the main thrusted outer flame. Now to turn back off the torch, we're going to start backing the gas down until we get about 1/2 inch candle lengths. Start turning off the blue valve till it's off. Now turn off your green valve. And start turning down as you're turning the green valve to start turning down your gas valve until it's off. Now on your center fire, I'm going to use the 3 front valves to shut that off. We're going to turn off the blue valve first on the center, and then we're going to turn the front green valve down and then start turning the gas down until it's off. Okay, now I'm going to show you one flame you should never run on our torches. It's a short, soft, fluffy flame that's real close to the face of the burner. If you ever get down too low, it'll look real short and soft with some candle in it, and the jets are real short. It'll start to get like an orange outer shroud around the flame, and sometimes you got to look at an angle. If you see the orange orifices glowing a little orange on the tips, that means you have to add more oxygen, and you should never run a short, soft flame like that. If you need a brushy flame, run it out a little further and very little blue valve. Don't never run it down close to the face of the burner. If you run it that way for a long time, what will happen is you'll start noticing deterioration on the jets, and it causes the torch to overheat. So you should never run that kind of flame. Just run it out further. If you're running the torch with too little of oxygen to the outer fire, you may notice when the torch is off, these individual jets will start looking like they're eroding. That's caused because there's not enough oxygen to the outer fire. You have to run it with a little more oxygen if these jets get deteriorated. And also, if the burner jets get deteriorated, the burner face can always be retrued up and resurfaced. You may notice uneven candle lengths in the flame. This is caused by the individual jets that are in the very center that lay at random patterns, making the flame candle lengths a little uneven. It's nothing to worry about. It will not affect the overall flame characteristics of the torch. One last thing. Sometimes you will notice when the torch is new, the flame may seem to back down. This is caused by the valve seats springing up a little after the valve is first opened. This will happen temporarily till the valve seats wear in. Now I want to show you a few tips on taking care of your torch. Using the burner face brush, brush the face at least once a week or once every day if you do a lot of heavy fuming. And using the wire provided, go in the very center injector jets and poke them out every once a month if it needs it or not. And if you would ever notice any long yellow candles, take the wire and poke the very center jet out. Periodically check the screens on the end of the studs for obstructions, more so if you change out lines frequently.
I'm going to be using the needle sharp flame on the Lynx today to make a miniature flower that's going to be used in a paperweight inclusion. I'm going to be building a flower that's going to look similar to this one, only it's going to have red petals. First thing I'm going to do is begin by making a couple of the petals. Actually running the flame a little softer and not as pinpoint as I'm actually going to be running it when I'm putting the flowers and the petals on, putting the flower together. Kind of giving it a little bit of heat. And because the torch actually runs a lot hotter than you would expect, You just have to give it a little bit of heat, and you can actually pull most of the flower outside of the flame. And lets me get in real nice and close. Make sure the end is nice and sharp there. I'm going to refocus the flame now, just to make it a little bit sharper. Use more of the secondary oxygen than the primary one, just to make it more of a tight flame. That way for when I'm going to build the inside of the flower first. And this way it'll allow me to get in easier when I'm actually putting on the petals and the leaves. I'm going to put a little bit of white. It's going to be the inside of the flower. Then I have a piece of yellow that I pulled down really thin and cased with clear, and then pulled down even thinner. Going to heat this up and apply it all around so it looks like the little stamen. You won't be able to tell that they're encased once they're inside the paperweight. I'll just make sure that the little stamen hold up. Just going to come in there, make sure they're all fairly well melted in. Heat up just the tip. Just made myself something I could grab onto there. Heat it up again. Nice thing about this flame, I can heat up one area, and this is a very small piece of glass I'm working on. Heat up just enough so I don't move the entire piece. I just want to move that very tip end to elongate it. Clean it up just a bit. Now what I'm going to do is come in with a piece of clear that I'll attach to the top. I'll actually bring this down a little bit lower with the finished piece. This is going to be my holding rod for right now. This way I can attach the leaves and the petals. And again, this torch allows me just to heat up this back part that I don't really need on there. I'm going to switch hands. And I'll begin applying the petals to the back. the very end. And because the torch actually gets the glass so hot, give it some heat and you still have enough time to bend it around outside of the flame. You have a little bit more control.
Don't go down quite so far.
Now, just depending on if you want the flower to look like it's open or want the petals to hang down. I normally do them where the petals are aiming up because they look nicer in the weights. Heat up the back. I'm going to heat up a little bit more of the leaf than I normally did when I was laying on the petals. Just because more of the leaf is actually going to be touching the back of the flower. I don't want it to shock it. As I'm heating up, I'm actually sending just a little bit of heat down so that the leaf will kind of naturally fall there. I'm going to build up the back of the flower, coming in with a little green stringer. This is what the stem is going to come off of, and it also adds support to the whole piece. Torch gives off a lot of heat, and so I can heat this up, go in, tag, finish most of the pulling outside of the flame. Go around, make sure didn't miss any spots. I need to fill in a little bit more there. Looks kind of sloppy, but I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the center of the flower, where I heat it up and then I'm going to pull it down. Hold on to there. I'm going to build a little stem. Got enough time for the heat to penetrate. Now I can hold on to that stem as I burn off the piece. Heat up the tweezers a little bit so it doesn't shock the flower at all. This is one of the nicest things. I can come in there right at the tip there, burn it off. As I said before, I didn't burn off as low as I needed to, so I can heat up just the tip, go in there and pull it off. So a nice sharp point there on the flower.
I'm going to be making a cobalt blue dolphin with clear Pyrex and casing over it with North Star boar color. I'm going to start by just preheating the tip of the cobalt rod. Now I'm going to lay it down, turning the outer ring. I've got a 5/8 inch rod of Pyrex. I'm going to preheat this whole thing. Now this is preheated nicely. I'm going to eliminate the outer rings, go back to the small rod, or the small flame, pick up my cobalt. Now I have that whole 5/8 rod preheated rather nicely. I'm going to add a little more heat. I'm going to start stripping. I'm only needing to strip probably 5 inches of this. I'm going to add a little more heat again. There we go. I'm heating this at like 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 12. As the surface goes smooth and doesn't have any valleys or crevices, and move to the extra or to the other side, make sure the entire piece is all smooth before you do any pull on it. Now gently I'm starting to pull to taper this off into the body of the dolphin, elongating the rod. I'm going to go above the flame just for probably 30 seconds to let this chill. Then I'm going to taper the right side away and form the tail end of the dolphin. You can see the colors are starting to strike and the red glow is leaving. Now I'm going to start the tapering. The dolphin's body is going to be arched with a recurve on its tail. So the inner aspect of that primary arch is aiming up. That'll be the body that is aiming down now. Then I arch it over. Now there's the curve of the tail. I'm going to switch hands. Now I'm going to pull the nose of the dolphin out. The tail of the dolphin now is struck and is a lot colder than the body of the dolphin. I'm going to hang this upside down as I'm starting to put the curve of the dolphin's body. It'll have kind of like a slight U to it. Now there's going to be the basic shape of the body of the dolphin. I'm going to change this around again now. Upside down. I'm going to taper off the little tail tip of the dolphin. Now I'm going to eliminate the larger flame. Go to the smaller flame to do detail work. I'm going to make the dolphin fins. I'm just going to drop below the marver plate, below the torch to flatten the end of the rod in my right hand. I have a flat disc now. I'm going to weld on sideways to the dolphin tail and do a little double pull on it to make it a little longer. Taper straight out, straight to the rear. Look at it from 2 different 90-degree angles. Keep the dolphin warm in the backfire. Get my gather of my North Star. Go back down to the marver plate, flatten, flatten. Have the dolphin aimed away from me to weld on this second fin. A little bit more of a double pull. Pull it outward and then to the rear. Look at them to make sure that they're about the same size. Backfire the dolphin. Get my third gather here. Go back to the marver plate. Flatten, 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 flatten. Heat up the top of the dolphin's body. Weld the disc to the area where the dorsal fin will go. Holding the dolphin upside down, taper that fin away. Look at it from a couple of different angles. Backfire the piece. I've got a 10 millimeter punty rod that's already flattened. I'm heating up the tip of that now. I'm going to weld that to the bottom of the dolphin's tail. Change hands. Look at it from 2 or 3 different angles. Upside down is the angle I'm going to use when I go to initially pull off the dolphin's face, or the gather where there will be left to do the face. This technique saves a lot of the expensive North Star Bora color, because you'll see the Dolphin just think that it's cobalt and not even think about it being clear on the inside. The glass is melting nicely now. I'm going to hold it upside down for the initial pull here. Tiny bit of a wiggle. Move a little further out. Heat up that face part of the Dolphin so it retracts. Now I'm going into the backfire with my cobalt rod, changing positions where the Dolphin's in the backfire. I'm going to take this gather and flatten it on two sides just a little bit, and then put that on the bottom of the Dolphin's face area. Flatten, flatten, weld it straight to the bottom, pull it directly out, look at it straight on, try and look at it from 2 or 3 different angles, backfire the whole piece. Now I've got 2 of the side fins to do. I've got a gather, I'm going down to my marver plate, flatten, 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 come in on the right side, weld that fin, taper it off, get my last gather here, go down to my marver plate, flatten, 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 weld this fin in, taper it off. And then something that's really neat about this torch is I'm backfiring this whole piece. The last 2 fins I'm not 100% perfectly on the way they sealed. I'm not really happy with it. So I'm going to slow down, make the flame a little smaller, kill my green, go to my blue, and I have that little micro needle flame. I'm going to run it right up where I sealed that fin on the Dolphin. And there's your finished Dolphin.
I'll be fuming gold and silver to design a jar. The first thing I'm doing here is pre-warming the tube very slightly so that the fuming sticks to it. And in this case, I am going to fume part of the tube with gold. The flame type for fuming gold is somewhat specific. Not a large window of flames will fume gold. It takes a smaller range of flames, but you can see the fumes traveling in the flame and sticking to the tube. We'll get a nice thick coat near the top of gold and very thin near the bottom. You can see the difference. Now I'll fume some silver on the bottom side, and that takes a different flame. It needs a softer flame to fume the silver. If you use too heavy a flame, too oxygenating a flame, the silver will develop a skin and it will not fume. So now we're fuming the silver over the bottom. And we do have a thin coat on there now. I'll keep fuming so we get thicker and thicker and thicker. I would like a very thick coat of silver on the bottom of this. There we go. You can tell it's thick when it starts to turn white. Now I will begin applying some clear rod on top of the gold to trap the fumes on the surface of the piece. The gaps between the lines are the place where we'll have variety in color because the gold will burn off where it's not trapped. Just about any flame type will work for this part of the operation, except if you go too oxygenating a flame, it will burn the gold off before it's trapped. So you don't want an extremely oxygenating flame for this step. Many people do not work all the way to the point. I choose to because I get more material for my piece. But it does require me to straighten my point after I apply the lines. For the next step, for the first layer of design on the lower section of the jar, we will string some cobalt along the surface of the jar. Don't forget to pre-warm your tube very slightly before you string your silver, or before you string your cobalt, or else it will not stick. I always lay stringers on last so that I can go and melt them in immediately after they're applied. That way there's very little risk of them popping off the surface. And from here we'll basically melt these stringers in smooth. Make sure you don't close your point. Quick little blow. Smooth out these stringers here. And the last part of the first layer of design will be to melt in the 4mm lines trapping the gold and twist them. Let the glass set up slightly, and then a slight blow with the twist at the same time will intensify the twist slightly. Even out the wall and the diameter. And continue. And again, a slight blow to even out the wall. Okay, that concludes our first layer of design. Now we'll apply the second layer. And to do so, we must let the top cool so that it stops glowing orange, or else the fumes will not stick. If the glass is too hot or too cool, the fumes of the gold and silver don't really stick to the glass, so we want it at the right temperature range. We're about there now, so now what we'll do is we'll spray gold first. I always spray gold first. And we will apply gold on top of the blue stringered section. which has a silver base. So that'll give us more variety in the final color in the end. And now we will fume silver on the top, since there is a gold base layer on the top. Again, need a bushier flame for silver. Don't want to make that silver get a skin on the surface. All right. Now we will apply our second layer of design. I'll begin with some simple pool type effects on the bottom, covering our stringers. Now the neatness of this step is rather important, but not extraordinarily so, because during the final melt, these pools will round out very nicely. So it's not a big issue how neat they are, as long as they don't touch each other. Even out our wall thickness through that center seam where the two designs meet. That's a spot that tends to become thick or thin. So an extra melt on it and a little blow usually corrects that completely. Perfect. Now, when I'm melting near a point, I usually go to a smaller pin flame. Allows greater control for the amount of glass being heated. In this case, I only need a small amount heated, so I'll use a small flame. Generally, when I'm raking, I leave little lumps at the end, which could be corrected by blowing, but in this case, I'm just going to pull them down slightly. Pull that design into the point. That should eradicate any thick parts from the ends of that raked rod. Now there are many different methods of creating the rim of the jar. In this case, I'm just going to use the quick and easy method of blowing out what some call a kidney. Basically, I'll be torch cutting this point, and I'll remove some of the glass at the end of the torch cut section to thin it out. Also tends to center that point very nicely. And then go back and reheat. Now, I'm going to be blowing here, and this part is a little bit tricky. It takes a little bit of practice to figure out how hard to blow so that the bubble does not pop. And before I flare the hole open, I will paddle it, which will give a nice perpendicular edge to that hole. If you don't do that, when you go to flare it open, any imperfections will be magnified. Usually I'll give it 2 paddlings with a slight thickening on the rim between the 2 paddlings. That makes it easier to get a perfect rim at the end. And now, to do the flare, or the opening, we want a larger flame that's not extremely oxygenating. Actually, it's somewhat reducing. Now, in theory, you can spin this fast and open it up that way, as I'm beginning to here. The more control you have, the straighter it'll come out. I'll use this carbon reamer to speed up the process. And any corrections that need to be made can be made to the outside with the paddle, And again, for this part, we do want a slightly more oxygenating flame. And we just spin the rim on the paddle until it squares off nicely. The more control you can keep, the more perfect it will come out on the first try. Give that a quick flash so that it does not crack. Remove our blow tube, like so. And we can heat the end and pull our design into the bottom if you so choose, or you can leave a clear lens there. I'll pull it out myself. And the final step is to melt the base smooth and flatten it against a marver, which actually I have just off camera below the torch. It's a rather convenient spot for it. In this case, I'm going to give it a quick paddle first, and then you know what I'm going to do with this one? Since we have a thick bottom on this one, I'm going to do what some people do in furnace technique, stick the corner of the paddle in and create a champagne style bottom. And it's a good idea to fire polish that so that if any creases occur in the surface of the glass, you can smooth them out. And if you're using a champagne bottle base like this, it just takes a very light correction to stay flat. And that's our final product.
For my first demonstration, I will be making a Pyrex Dewar using the phantom torch and a hand torch, and I'll be putting a single T-seal on the Dewar. For the second demonstration, I will be pulling a point on a piece of quartz tubing using the Delta torch and a hand torch, and I will be adding T-seals to that tubing. Okay, I'm going to preheat this piece of tubing, and I'm going to blow this up into a short squat Dewar. And then what I'm going to do is seal a couple side arms on this. And you want a soft flame from this phantom torch. Really smooth flame to begin blowing the bubble. I'm going to adjust the oxygen a little bit. I'll just gather some of this glass in the center, start building it up. I'll just gather some of this glass in the center, start building it up.
I'll just take and burn this end off. I'll just even this wall up a little bit. Now that I have the flask blown, I'll take and use the rollers. I'll bring these rollers in so I can support that a little better. And I'm just going to eat half of the flask now. I'm going to let that constrict back, and then I'll suck that back in. That'll be the inside of the Dewar. And I'll angle that in just a little. Keep that inside hot, keep the edge hot. Just keep sucking in just a little bit at a time. This is just a shallow Dewar. The first thing I'm going to do is pull a point on a piece of quartz tubing, show the intensity of the heat that can be achieved with these torches. Add a little more oxygen. burn that off now. Now we'll take and open up a hole. I'll adjust this down a little bit. I'll just flare this up a little bit now. Now that I have it close to size, I'll attach the sidearm to it. Preheat this a little bit. And I'll seal that on. I'll float this in a little bit. And on the other side. Now I'll bring the hand torch into action here. And that T-seal is complete. I'll open up a hole on the other side. I'll need to flare that up just a touch. Bring in the hand torch next. And we'll just work that in. Get that quartz to float. Get an even wall in there. And we'll just puff it out a little bit as it floats. You want your torch tip to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches away from the glass. That seems to be where the hottest part of the flame is. And this should be about it. And it's done.
I hope this information helps you in getting the most out of your glass torch tank triple mix torches. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call us. Thank you.